Hi, folks. Hey, guess what product I've been hitting quite a bit this week? That's right. It's all from sunsetlakesebede.com. I've been using it to get some sleep. Their good night oil mixed with some Seben and Sebede does the job. And then as my panic attack starts to roll in somewhere between the hours of every waking hours I have, I try some of their just their straight Sebede tinctures, but there's also Sebede gummies. They have Sebede gummies with some ashwagandha mushroom, and they have a calming one. They have a focus one. They have all sorts of gummies. They have all sorts of tinctures. They have all sorts of smokable products, pre-rolls, keef, all sorts of different things like that. They have fudge. They have Sebede coffee. And also, it's super dry. Wait, where's my lotion? Hey, my calves are itching. And I honestly, they have Sebede lotions and salves, all sorts of great products. I actually put a little bit of Sebede in my hair.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, a drop or two of the tincture. But however you use it, you can get 20% off with the coupon code LEFTISBEST. And let me just tell you something about sunsetlakesebede.com itself. They have great business practices, $20 minimum wage, mostly employee-owned company, though. They have great farming practices. They practice integrated pest management. They don't use pesticides. They use regenerative farming so that they work with the University of Vermont up near Burlington, so they treat the soil properly and keep it healthy. And they're movement partners. They have donated tens of thousands of dollars to things like Planned Parenthood, refugee resettlement, Give Directly, carceral reform, strike funds. They've provided money for food pantries, and they've done mutual aid in the wake of those floods up in Vermont. Just all around great folks, great company, and great product. Third-party tested. Check it out, sunsetlakesebede.com. Use the coupon code LEFTISBEST. You get 20% off. And now, time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, January 31st, 2025. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Ryan Grimm, co-founder of DropSite, co-host of Counterpoints, longtime reporter, etc., etc. Meanwhile, speaking of longtime Treasury official, top one there, quits, as Elon Musk's team is given the keys to the U.S. checkbook. Paramount is now the latest corporation to pay off Donald Trump through a scam lawsuit settlement. Meanwhile, Donald Trump doubles down on his claim that desegregation has caused a D.C. plane crash. Freak out behind the scenes in anticipation of tomorrow's deadline for Trump's 25% across the board tariff with Canada and Mexico. The good news is he's left off oil. Yesterday's day 2 of the RFK HHS hearings shows his lack of knowledge about something, tiny little program under HHS called Medicaid. 65 million people or 95 million people on Medicaid?
I think it's 65, if I'm not mistaken. Or 71?
Tulsi Gabbard's hearing yesterday was all about Snowden. Kash Patel plays dumb, and Doug Burgum, the Burgamentum,
72 million. That was close.
was confirmed. Republicans gearing up to assault working class and poor for wealthy tax cuts. Trump purges the FBI of cyber, national security, and criminal investigators, none of whom, incidentally, were involved in his investigation. Wonder why he would. Wonder who in the administration or adjacent would want there to be a lack of cyber, national security, and criminal investigations.
The best video game player in the world?
Democrats boycott Senate Budget Committee vote. Democrats boycott the Senate Budget Committee vote where Russell Vogt was approved 11-0. And the new FCC chair targets PBS and NPR. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Sorry, I got Medicare confused with Medicaid. 61. I think it's a little bit higher than that. And Medicare, 72 on Medicaid. Nevertheless, that's a lot of people.
Yep. Hello.
And, sorry, Emma Vigeland.
So rude.
Where'd she go?
No manners.
Where is she?
Here I am.
I don't see the dual. It's not on my screen.
Virtual camera.
Oh, I'm
All
not
right.
seeing it.
Oh, I'm not in pain.
I'll be incognito for now. People could have no idea what I look like. I could be wearing a funny hat. Oh, no. All right,
Nope,
solved.
no funny hat. Sorry.
Sorry. All right. Then maybe next time.
We will get to the RFK thing in a moment, or I should say later in the program. Really stunning facts about Medicaid. He doesn't seem to know. I mean, these are basic stuff. He may know more than me about Medicaid, although I wonder. But the difference being, I'm not going to be in charge of it. In fact, I'm not going to have anything to do with the administration of Medicaid that I'm aware of in the short term.
Might be your dream.
Well, there's a couple up there. There's a couple of those. If it involves FICA, I'm more inclined. Medicaid comes out of the general budget. Let's, Emma obviously talked about this yesterday. Horrible crash in D.C., the first one we've had in ages in commercial airlines. Something like, somebody was telling me today, 150 million flights since the last commercial aviation accident
In the U.S.
in the U.S.
There was one, I think, in 2009, but it's the deadliest since 9/11.
Yep. And here is Donald Trump up there taking full responsibility for this failure of the crashes. No, I'm joking. He is, of course, blaming DEIA, which is another way of saying either desegregation or rollback on the Americans with Disabilities Act. Just basically, he's saying we don't have enough discrimination left. And now, let's be clear. There's little evidence that there was a particular person at fault that we know of at this point. We know that the FAA has been understaffed for a long time. We know that this week in particular, every single federal worker has been under an increased amount of stress. We know that the FAA chief was fired because Elon Musk didn't like him.
Because he'd been cracking down on SpaceX's multiple violations. So even before, I think, Trump had won, he had been railing publicly against this FAA administrator, and then the guy basically was ousted on Inauguration Day. So the FAA has been without a leader since Inauguration Day, and then we had the worst aviation disaster since 9/11 on U.S. soil.
That can just be a correlation, if not a causation. But the bottom line is there is zero evidence of Donald Trump's assertion here. But if you recall from the last time Donald Trump was president, something goes wrong. It's definitely time to blame. We can't say so explicitly black people. We can't say so explicitly brown people. We can't say explicitly so women or gay people or trans people or now I guess also disabled people. We'll just use a couple of initials, CTR, DEI, whatever it is.
Have more to say about that. I do want to point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they want them, they can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so. This was in January 14th, so that was a week before I entered office. They put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program. Then another article, the Federal Aviation Administration, this was before I got to office, recently, second term. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine? These are people that are...
Pause it. I just want to be clear. This existed on the website, I believe, when Trump was in office as well.
They do ask, he was asked about that, I think, in the Oval Office. Yeah.
And we can jump to that one in a second. But in fact, I think Fox even also had it on their website.
Yep, until recently.
And from the records we have, the FAA was able to reach its goals. It wasn't a quota, but they were able to reach their goals of 2% throughout its entire agency of people who may have some type of physical or mental disability or challenge, which, of course, the idea is, how do we set up a situation where folks who have these challenges can still perform the job at peak performance level?
But you're not being very fair to Donald Trump. He's really all about meritocracy. That's why Pete Hegseth is the defense secretary, having no experience in that regard, and running two small organizations into the ground and having all these allegations against him. It's why J.D. Vance picked Tucker Carlson's son to be on his press team.
Thursday, April 11th, 2019. Who was president then? FAA provides aviation careers to people with disabilities.
Go ahead. Keep playing.
I mean, actually, their lives are shortened because of the stress that they have. Brilliant people have to be in those positions, and their lives are actually shortened, very substantially shortened, because of the stress, where you have many, many planes coming into one target, and you need a very special talent and a very special genius to be able to do it. Targeted disabilities are those disabilities that the federal government, as a matter of policy, has identified for special emphasis in recruitment and hiring. The FAA's website states they include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism all qualify for the position of a controller of airplanes pouring into our country, pouring into a little spot, a little dot on the map, a little runway. The initiative is part of the
it's a little dot.
FAA's
Pause it for a
diversity
second. Can you imagine little dwarfs running around trying to do FAA
They
things?
can't even see above the controls.
DEI?
I like this fan fiction he has going on in his head. We're getting more information about who was involved, but the pilots in both of those instances, thus far of what we know, were both cis, white people. Same with the air traffic control person who was overstretched. And the idea that he's essentially trying to encourage people to go for a fishing expedition to blame these individuals and punch down
Because
instead
even
of
if there was
punch
a black
up.
one,
Yeah.
he would have been qualified to have been there.
Exactly. But it doesn't matter, right? They're just saying DEI is a get out of jail free card.
But this is a Doge crash, not a DEI crash. And Doge meaning like, we're not funding things. We are pinching pennies and not staffing up. This is not we're hiring too many dwarfs and people with one
All
arm.
these dwarfs and all the people at FAA are
one
unelected
arm.
bureaucrats.
Why'd you lose it?
Unelected bureaucrats.
Remember the crash
Really bad.
in East Palestine? That was also a result of like
Same thing.
deregulatory practices and those freight trains skimping on labor and having the fewest possible people operating those trains so that they could make more money at the top. There is this like efficiency fixation throughout a bunch of different industries, which is really about squeezing as much value out of it to go to wealthy people and making sure that they have the least amount of labor force operating these essential functions.
It's neoliberalism.
Let's play this clip where he's asked about that on the website during his administration.
The cited FAA text that you read is real, but the implication that this policy is new or that it stems from efforts that began under President Biden or the Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is demonstrably false. It's been on the FAA's
said that,
website.
you?
No, it's on the website, the FAA's website. It was there in 2013. It was there for the
Take a look.
entirety.
What I read.
It was there for the entirety of your administration
Nice and
too.
easy.
So my question is, why didn't you change the policy during your first
I
administration?
did change it. I changed the Obama policy, and we had a very good policy. And then Biden came in, and he changed it. And then when I came in 3 days ago, I signed a new order, bringing it to the highest level of intelligence.
It
Okay.
was on the website.
Highest level of intelligence.
IQ
Speaking of highest level of
Calipers
intelligence, did you show his tweet on Truth Social yesterday?
No.
The airplane was on a perfect pitch. That one.
Yeah, we got to pick and choose.
The
what crazy
airplane was
thing.
on a perfect and routine line of approach at the airport. The helicopter was going straight at the airplane for an extended period of time. It is a clear night. The lights on. The plane were blazing. Why didn't the helicopter go up or down or turn?
Trying to make me look bad.
Why didn't the control tower tell the helicopter what to do instead of asking if they saw the plane?
Curious.
First of all, they did. I mean, they said, you're online. Get
They
up
saw
on
the
it."
wrong plane. I think is what happened.
That seems to be what happened.
This is a bad situation that looks like it should have been prevented. Not good.
Yeah, that's a hot take. Bad situation that could have been prevented. Who is president right now?
You know, it's interesting,
Elon
though.
Musk.
It
Oh, right.
sounds
Thank
like
you.
with that, do you have that tweet? Yeah, just put that up. It sounds like to me, he thought at that moment that, oh, it's a terrorist attack and I get to be in charge.
Right.
It's too bad Twitter was not around 9/11.
It's ironic because the helicopter was flying on.
Hey, man, I'm looking at this thing. I'm going, hey, that plane looks like it's flying right into not good.
The helicopter
El problemo.
was flying on what's known as a continuity of government mission, which is a secretive thing that has only been put into place like on 9/11 to make sure government continue functioning after a terrorist attack. So
El
a little bit of
problemo.
irony.
It's a little odd that they're even doing these test flights like by one of the busiest airports in the country. And as I mentioned it yesterday, Reagan was supposed to, by the way, the irony of this being at Reagan's airport, given his deregulation of
Right.
Is it really busting the FAA
Patco.
union?
This is a Patco strike busting crash.
But it is like a complete. It's a consistent theme from like his vision of politics right here. But the flights, as I said yesterday, it was only built for $15 million a year, and now it's servicing $25 million. And you know what that is? In part, look, I understand air travel is important and people need to get from place to place, but this is also greed, and putting people in unsafe positions. And then, of course, the compounding effect of the chaos that Trump and Musk are causing with our like federal employees in these essential services. We talk about how it's dangerous when the government shuts down for a few days to travel because the flight attendants union will be like, we don't want to fly on these flights because we don't have any assurances that we're going to be able to land safely because the government shut down. People could not be showing up. It's a very similar situation that he just threw our air travel into with like his antics over the past week.
The good news is that we have government officials who are going to head down there and take responsibility and deal with it. I'm sure yesterday you guys talked about Sean Duffy saying like this is not standard operating procedure to have planes crash into each other.
We did touch it a little bit.
Here is Donald Trump talking about how when he's asked, you go visit the site where we've had the largest aviation accident since 9/11. Well, obviously that wasn't an accident. Largest aviation deaths
disaster
since 9/11, and the first one in 15 years.
Families of the victims of the plane crash.
I don't want to comment on that.
Do you have a plan to go visit the site or meet with any of the
I have a
first
plan
responders?
to visit, not the site, because you tell me what's the site? The water?
Or to meet with
Want
the
me to go
first
swimming?
responders down there?
I don't have a plan to do that, but I will be meeting with some people that were very badly hurt with their family member, obviously, but I'll be meeting with some of the families, yeah.
I'm going to have them come to Mar-a-Lago. I'm not going to go down there in a plane and walk to the
water?
and look.
He says badly hurt. You mean everyone was killed, right?
He said the family was badly hurt by, yes, the death of their loved ones,
okay.
including these young skaters. Like, we're still getting the information about it, but like, I know we're numb to Trump at this point. It's just, if that was your family member and he said, like, what do you want me to do? Go swimming?
I'm busy blaming black people.
What a
Hey, man, do you think I'm going to go down and what am I going to do? Sit on a pile of rubble?
hot take.
There's no
Bad guy, Donald
there is no
Trump.
Twin Towers anymore. I'm not going to go down there and look at the first responders. You might want to go down there just to make the guys who've been diving for 3 days straight appreciate it.
Yeah, it's cold out. I've got to go swimming. I don't take my shirt off. Everybody knows that.
Well, here we are. In a moment, we'll be talking to Ryan Grimm, reporter at and co-founder of Drop Site News. They're doing a lot of really interesting stuff over there. We'll talk a little bit about that, but also co-host of Counterpoints. First, a couple of words from our sponsors. Every day it's another thing. Nothing is predictable these days. And one thing that has never been predictable, of course, is, sometimes the trajectory of your life and different tragedies. For me, before I got insurance, particularly after my first kid was born, every day there was this sort of grinding anxiety I had. And just getting life insurance, what are you going to do? You hope you never use it, obviously, particularly when you have it on yourself. Not for a while anyways, but it is a great way just for your own anxiety to feel comfortable, but it's also hugely important for your family. And you can take the sort of the bar to entry out of purchasing life insurance and chuck it away through SelectQuote. SelectQuote is one of America's leading insurance brokers. They have nearly 40 years of experience. They have helped over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in life insurance coverage since 1985. Other life insurance brokers offer impersonal one-size-fits-all policies that may cost you more and cover you less. SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents work for you to tailor a life insurance policy for your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. Have you ever worried about getting coverage with pre-existing health conditions? SelectQuote partners with carriers that provide policies for a variety of health conditions. High blood pressure, no problem. Diabetes, that's okay too. Even if you have heart disease, SelectQuote partners with carriers that can cover these conditions and others. Or if you don't have any major health issues, they work with carriers that can get you same-day coverage with no medical exam required. Most people know this, but more often than not, when you get life insurance, you got to get they have like some type of like paramedical person come visit you and maybe check your blood pressure. Head to SelectQuote.com. A licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Get the right life insurance for you for less at SelectQuote.com/majority. Go to SelectQuote.com/majority today to get started. That's SelectQuote.com/majority. Don't put it off. Save yourself the anxiety. We'll put the link in the podcast and YouTube description. Also, this show sponsored by Liquid IV. A lot of folks looking to start a new ritual at the beginning of the year, worry about hellness. Well, whatever you do, come into your own way with extraordinary hydration from Liquid IV. It's powered by LIV Hydroscience. Liquid IV helps you break the mold. They have flavors like their new hydration multiplier, sugar-free raspberry lemonade. It is a zero sugar flavor combining the notes of ripe, freshly picked raspberries and citrusy, zesty lemon. I mean, people know what this tastes like. Look, every day I have two bottles like this.
I drink it many days. I will say that when you're sick or fighting back a cold, it is essential for that. With the vitamins, it keeps you hydrated and also like from falling fully into sickness during this time of the year.
I would just do it basically so that I could talk during for 2 hours when I started it. But I feel the difference at the end of the day. If I've had 2 bottles of this, I just generally feel better. It makes sense. I mean, you're mostly water as a person. I don't know, mostly. Maybe.
We are mostly water.
I'm not a scientist. I do know that I drink 2 bottles of this a day, and I've been doing that for like 6 years. They got all sorts of flavors: acai berry, lemon lime, pina colada. But now, for me, I'm almost totally. Occasionally, I'll do like the matcha energy one. But they have sugar-free flavors. Raspberry lemonade. I got this one here. It's the new one. They have white peach. I love that one too. I also love the raspberry melon. And they also have rainbow sherbet. I have not tried that, but I imagine it's like a punch. Break the mold and your own ritual. 1 stick plus 16 ounces of water hydrates you better than water alone. The stick, they come in like little packets that you can travel with. I took it out to L.A. when I went out to L.A. Was that only just 6 days ago? Jeez. Liquid IV has an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink. It is always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. Embrace your ritual with extraordinary hydration from Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com. Use the code MajorityRep at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MajorityRep at liquidiv.com. Link in the podcast and YouTube description. Quick break. Ryan Grimm. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland.
Vigeland, close.
Emma V. On the Majority Report. Joining us now, the reporter and co-founder of Drop Site News, co-host of Counterpoints, Ryan Grimm. Ryan, always a pleasure.
Indeed. Always good to be here.
We're going to talk about your little screed on DEI on X when we get around to there, because we've got a lot to talk about. Also, I just wanted to also say, congratulations on what you guys are doing over at Drop Site.
Yeah.
I know you're doing this thing with The Guardian and the 972 mag, and you've got a couple other sort of like joint reporting projects with other outlets. Just briefly, give me the 1 minute recap on that.
Well, yeah, the one we did with The Guardian and 972, which is an Israeli investigative news outlet. They're the ones that originally broke the Lavender scandal.
Yeah.
If you remember this, Lavender is this IDF program that was using AI to come up with lists of targets and then basically pulling the trigger. And the program was called Where's Daddy? Because in contravention of all decency and international, human rights law, what they were doing is they were waiting for Hamas members or people that AI identified as Hamas members to come home to their buildings and then striking their buildings. And they had massively expanded the number of innocent people that they said were okay to kill in order to kill that guy. And they also massively reduced the rank. So it used to be, if you were going to kill 20 civilians to kill one guy, it had to be a very top ranking person. Now, the US won't do that. The US will not even take out a high value target if there are civilians around. We do it. We're not supposed to do it, but our rules of engagement are we do not do that. Israel's rules of engagement are they do that. It used to be for high ranking people. What they did after October 7th is they said anybody who's affiliated with Hamas can now be taken out, and it doesn't matter how many civilians around them, as long as it's like under 20. And if you go through the lists of the casualties that the Ministry of Health puts out, you'll see that there are an awful lot of people in Gaza with the same names. Like, because people haven't been able to really leave Gaza, for many decades. You have the same, Al-Masri will be page after page after page after page of those killed. And you often have people named after their father or their mother or their grandmother. So you will get enormous numbers of people that have basically the same name. To let AI then determine, who is Hamas at what address and then attack that building. So just to me, the biggest scandal so far of the AI era, and 972 broke that story.
It's both scandalous, even if they're, at the risk of minimizing this and not the intent, but we see this in the context of purging voter rolls.
Right.
That type of stuff. It's the same sort of programmatically, except for the difference is these people are targeted for killing and under diminished threshold for what constitutes a legitimate killing of these people, and as a deliberate policy. So, this would be a good question next time you're in with the Defense Department. If Israel's the most moral army in the world, that must mean that we're almost our military is almost angelic. For us, we got to be that much more moral if it's not even our policy.
Right. And to finish your question, so we at DropSite got a ton of documents, from Israeli Ministry of Defense and Microsoft that showed the contracts that were cut between Microsoft and the Israeli Ministry of Defense that showed an explosion of kind of use of cloud and other services from Microsoft after October 7th. We don't know if Microsoft was specifically powering Lavender, but we did report with The Guardian and 972 that Microsoft is one of the biggest customers, or I guess Israel's one of the biggest customers for Microsoft, and we brought in 972 because they had done that that previous reporting. So that was a kind of the first kind of big partnership we've done. But we all did our own stories. It's sort of like these mainstream outlets are still like, you do your own story. We'll take the documents, but you guys do your own story, which is fine. Like that's kind of
my
how
understanding was
I would
like that's
it.
sort of like what the way that 972 and The Guardian and Local Call, I think it was, that Marone Rappaport, I think we interviewed him about
Local
that.
Call was involved too. In ours.
They all sort of like handled one silo of a similar story and used some of the same source material and maybe did some of the analysis.
It's a good model. Yeah. We did that with this expose on this news organization that was involved with like Panama Papers and Paradise Papers. We teamed up with a whole bunch of outlets in Europe and revealed that, in fact, they're about roughly 50% funded by State Department, which is which is information that should be that should be kind of shared willingly with readers, and that kicked off a big scandal in Europe. Although now it's kind of been washed over by Trump just gutting USAID totally. Like that's where a lot of the money was coming from. So now it's like, oh, they're not going in with a scalpel and going after different programs. They're just coming with a sledgehammer and hitting everything.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, I wanted to talk about the AI stuff and what it told us about Lena Khan and the danger of monopolies, but that seems like it's slid down the list right now in terms of next time around. People should keep in mind the implications of monopolies, on just simply the development of and how easy it is to sort of like get how atrophied it can make businesses. Right. But I mean, the story with the AI, in my mind, is really just more about like, how can we inflate the value of these assets? Exactly. Mm-hmm. The way we inflate the value of these assets is to pretend like it cost a real lot to develop, and all of a sudden we've artificially raised the bar to entry, and just hoping that nobody else figures out that we've been playing a game. It turns out they did. But let's talk about the Empowerment Control Act. What we've seen with the Office of Personnel Management extending into the Treasury, although that seems to be almost like a separate operation on some level, because you have like on one hand, you have the Doge stuff, which is now, I guess, an official government entity. They sort of swapped it out with the digital entity. It's unclear to me, like, what authority they have, but let's start with this Treasury story, because this, I think, what are they doing?
It looks like Elon Musk and his allies were sitting around and like, how does the money actually go, from Congress, to the executive, and then wind up having been spent? Like, what are the precise mechanisms for that? And then eventually it goes through Treasury. And it's a very technical system, just a very technical process. Like OMB will say, okay, this is the amount of money that's going to go out. And then the Department of Energy will say, all right, here's the money we're sending out, to subsidize this nuclear power plant or whatever. And so clearly what happened is Musk's people were like, okay, what happens next? Like, who's writing the check? Like, who's pressing the buttons? What accounts are going from there to there? And they wanted intimate access inside those rooms and to watch those money flows. And as Jeff Stein at the Washington Post scooped, the guy who's been kind of there since 1989 was like, no, you guys are not coming in here. Like, think like the bureaucrats in Ghostbusters, like, get out of here. Like this, you don't come anywhere near this. You don't know what you're going to do. You don't know what you're going to unleash. Actually, it was the reverse. The bureaucrats were the bad guys in Ghostbusters. And so he's resigning in protest over this. So, what damage could Elon Musk and his crew do if they go in there and start pressing these buttons and trying to get their hands on it? We did a piece a couple months ago before the election about Elon Musk's America Inc. He, like, the name of his, he's got this group called America Inc. It's a great piece that I would suggest people go find, that predicted that what Musk really wanted was to hoover up as much data and information as possible about the very precise mechanics of how federal spending works, to basically get choke points around it. And it looks like
why
he's
do you
heading in
want to
that
know
direction.
choke points? I mean, this
Then you're the most
feels,
powerful person in the world. Like, I mean, he's already
but I mean,
at the top.
like, this feels like I'm going into, I don't know, some mid-sized business. There's somebody sitting in an office who just literally writes the checks, put them in an envelope, and I'm going in there and I'm going like, I'm looking around and saying like, oh, so this is the printer you use? Oh, is this your email address? Oh, why don't you step out for half an hour? And
Can you imagine what you could do with that? Yeah.
I mean, this just seems like there's the idea that there's efficiencies to be made in that office seems so small bore. Like, you know, somebody's been there for 35 years. They've got it down, right? Like, I mean, we've got it down. I'm sure there's
The checks are going out. Like, say what you want about the government.
We don't
get our
hear
checks
of
out.
like somebody saying, you know, to the extent the checks aren't going out, it's a function of what of basically what the administration just did.
Yeah.
But there's the amount of dollars associated with the efficiency. Like, you know, I checked around here and you're paying $2.99 for these things. I can get them for you for $2.85. Like, there's just not margins here. The only reason why you would want access to that is if you wanted to purposely fuck up the process, the sort of like rubber meeting the road process of the government. And you know, like,
also,
the Russell vote stuff is sort of like one level up of like, we're going to screw with the engine, we're going to screw with the fuel injection, we're going to mess with the brakes. But this is like literally, you know, tires on the road.
And also, this guy's wealth depends on federal contracting. It's truly incredible. It's not just ideological or political. Like, his entire commercial enterprise is reliant on federal contracts to SpaceX, across the board, and aside from all the investments that he's got in China. And so what is, imagine you're like competing against him as a federal contractor now. Like, you're also bidding for these different services. This guy's not just in the Oval Office, he's in the bowels of the Treasury Department.
He's the deep state. You could do what Boeing is apparently doing and work with Elon Musk to manufacture your next fighter jet. That's what the reporting has been. And when we talk about government waste, there is literally no part of our government that is more wasteful than the Pentagon, which has failed audit after audit. But you know who's not going to be subjected to all these cuts? The part of the government that may be giving out contracts to Elon Musk as he helps Boeing manufacture their fighter jets, for the anti-war administration.
Yeah, going after the Pentagon budget would mean less money for the contracts in the pool that he pulls from. Maybe.
Let's talk about, I almost feel like we are like still 2 or 3 steps away from the traditional Republican, we're going to cut WIC, we're going to cut SNAP, we're going to cut this for tax cuts. We're just in the mode right now of, we've gone from the beginning of the week, we're going to basically make the government dysfunctional on an administrative level. Steve Bannon said in, whatever it was, March of 2017 at the CPAC, that's our goal. Destroy the administrative state. And they just started their process of carrying that out. But this is like, the check writing thing is not even like demoralizing the agencies, have the agencies be ineffective, have people not like government that way or whatever. This is literally, for all we know, the guy could be in there going like, we've done an analysis on this and all we need to do is change one digit and our checks will start adding like 32 cents per check or something like this. I mean, who knows what they're doing in there? It seems to me.
Yeah.
But let's go back to the beginning of the week. Russell Vought's sort of plan to traumatize federal workers. Do you even have a sense of where we stand now with this? Because my sense is they don't really, at the end of the day, care. Like whether this was part of their whole plan that they would rescind and not rescind, or the chaos. I'm just using like the metaphor of you got a sledgehammer, dude's been hired to go in and do demo, comes back and he's like, I think I might have hit something that was structural. And you're just like, I don't care. We want to take the whole building down eventually anyways.
Right. Yeah. And what I've been hearing from people who are, who are career, officials who've been interacting with Trump's folks is that there is a huge difference in tone between 2017 and now. 2017, they were surprised to win. They had the same radical kind of revolutionary attitudes. Russ Vogt was part of the original Trump operation and was at OMB. But there was a much more let's figure this out. Let's do this together. Like we need these federal workers to be on our side and to implement the policies that we want to get done. And it was generally speaking pretty collegial. There's now become this like embedded idea based in certainly a significant amount of reality among some workers that the workers were subverting the Trump administration, and there were a bunch that were that publicly said that they intended to do that. And so this time the tone has been just blunt and rude and aggressive, and lots of screaming and yelling, and you're going to do this. And there's an underlying sense that all of this is feeding into the idea that they want them to leave, that they're trying to get people to quit. That's of course backed up by that Elon Musk email that he sent to every federal worker, this fork in the road, saying everybody needs to come back to the office, which, by the way, is not even possible for lots of offices. Like over the years, they have to save money. They've shut down a significant number of offices. So where people were kind of would telework, 3 days a week, and there'd be enough kind of communal workspace for everybody. If you spread it out, bringing everybody into the office at the same time, you won't have, like a lot of places, you won't even have room for people. But setting that aside, Musk did this thing where he said, if you resign right now, you'll still get paid through September and you won't have to come in. But if you don't, you have to start coming in immediately. Most workers are not coming in immediately because they have unions and there are contracts, and Musk can't override a contract, just with like an all staff email. But clearly the design here is to just create chaos and misery and get enough people to just quit, so that if it's a position that they feel like they need filled, they backfill it with somebody from their Project 2025 resume list. And if they don't need it filled, then they just leave it empty.
I mean, this is like, and we were around during this. This feels like the CPA, the Coalition Provisional Authority,
right?
Heritage Foundation, except for the difference is that they thought we're going to be creating a Milton Friedman paradise in Iraq. And here again, they have a very simple agenda. I mean, when you do a blanket buyout, essentially, which is what they're offering for anybody in the federal government, there's no strategic downsizing here. There's no like, we're only keeping the most efficient and important people. You're just basically blanket. If we get people out of the federal government, mission accomplished. It doesn't matter who it is. And so this is clearly just, we're taking a wrecking ball. There's no surgical, stuff here. There's no plan to make the government more efficient. There's only a plan to make it, to destroy it, really, it seems like.
Yeah, because then then you have to privatize the things that you actually do need to get done. Like, oh, wow, look at this. The government can't really function anymore. Checks aren't even going out.
Right.
People are angry. Well, let's get
that's why he's going in there. Because he wants to set up a system that will do what the American government does in terms of issuing checks. and destroy ultimately the government's ability to do it. And then all of a sudden his business is right there. And then bingo.
I mean, what was his original money that he made at PayPal? And what did they figure out? If you sit in the middle of streams of money flows with your cup out, just pouring it into your bucket constantly, you will become a billionaire and one of the richest people in the world. So yeah, if you can get a private PayPal in there and just sit there and put just like an office space, you put a little, just take a few pennies on every transaction. They've seen what a few pennies through kind of controlling all the private flows of money can do. If you can get yourself in the middle of the public flows of money, then the sky's the limit.
It feels like Musk is really taking the Javier Milei model to heart for the United States government. Basically, an anarcho-capitalist vision, gut the administrative state, put the country through a series of shocks, to borrow from the great Naomi Klein. And that creates opportunity for guys like Musk, but there really is no one like him at the end of the day, because he's the wealthiest guy on the planet. As he goes to speak at a rally in Germany for a far-right party that most of the mainstream parties in Germany is barred from working with because they engage in light Holocaust denial, even though for the most part that's illegal in Germany. And he gives a speech there. He's feeling himself. He's expanding these ideas globally. Like, he's trying to interfere in the UK elections and now in Germany. And then you have the right-wing party in Germany basically starting to echo the AfD's rhetoric on immigration because they're so scared of Musk coming in and funding them, and then they become obsolete. He's trying to do this all across the world.
Yeah, I'm starting to wonder if Elon Musk is a more dangerous figure than Donald Trump even, which I didn't think was possible beforehand. But he seemed like Trump, not only is he term limited, never really seemed to have exactly a vision. He had
his vision is he's just going to put some cash in his pocket, and if there's something going around, he's going to get a taste, and he's making money. He doesn't care.
No, I think he's genuinely a bit of like when Trump talks about IQ and DEI. I'm sorry, Ryan, you were responding, but like there's some race science here. And Elon Musk has dabbled in this for quite a while. I think people.
JD Vance was talking about IQ on Twitter the other day.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like with the DEI, we want the highest IQ, smartest people. They are dipping their toe into race science. And Elon Musk, I think is one of his few genuine beliefs.
Right. And I think the Milei stuff is a genuine belief too. And I think it probably flows out of his he was raised in South Africa. Like I think he is hostile to democracy. Like, I think he thinks he's more in that Yarvin camp. And that's what our America Inc. story was about, which is like, one of the Yarvin ideas is that a corporation should actually, basically be in charge of governing a country. People can have shares in that company, and if they don't like that, then they can sell their shares and move somewhere else. Like, I feel like that's closer to what he believes.
Will this company have a monopoly of force?
Might be called America Inc.
Yeah, I mean,
it might if it becomes the main contractor for the Pentagon.
What? I mean, the only sort of like, in contemplating like how the brakes get put on, now I know Chuck Schumer's out there saying that people are getting are climaxing or aroused or whatever it is, and he's very happy about this. It seems to me that it's going to take a little bit more than Chuck Schumer sort of like watching all this with backwards binoculars, essentially, as if he's like 75 miles away from where it's all happening. And the courts, I guess it remains to be seen. It seems to me that part of what they're doing by the memo, rescinding the memo, them being unclear, is making it that much more difficult to actually find somebody who has standing, and it being a live question at any given point. I mean, because they could theoretically Okay, it gets to the, this court and they go, oh, we've rescinded it. All right, well, that court says it's not an issue anymore. And then the next day, we started it up again in just a different form. And then they could do this. Like, how long does it take? 3-4 months of this? And I mean, I'm like 36 hours away from quitting this job. Never mind, like if I was working, if you're in the federal government and you're just like, 4 years of this, forget about it. Like this is, somebody was just telling me they did, there were studies with mice that they did that. Like if you put them in a bucket of water and, every 15 seconds, somebody comes in and lifts them up, they can actually survive swimming in that water after that for a long period of time. But if nobody comes after, a couple of certain amounts, they all end up drowning because they just think this is going to go on forever. I mean, what's to keep this from being effective? Like what are the options on the table?
But also there was reporting in the kind of development, international development trade press today that by this weekend or early next week, there will be about 2,000 to 3,000 layoffs in Washington, D.C. at these, organizations that do work in the foreign aid space. So like you can't, when you freeze funding, you have payroll to make, people have bills to pay, you got commercial real estate mortgages to pay, and if you freeze that, you have to start furloughing people, and so it's effective immediately, in that sense. There's a lot of talk that they want to have a court challenge to the Impoundment Control Act, but like you said, as it moves through the courts, they kind of back off of it and make it moot. I think they're looking for a challenge where they're more likely to win. Whereas when they look at this one, they're like, okay, all right, we blew up Medicaid accidentally, maybe accidentally. We blew up Medicaid. We're going to lose if we go to court on that. So let's back off and let's try a different approach. I think they're going to keep trying until they get one where the Supreme Court will say, yeah, that spending is within the executive branch's authority, and the Impoundment Control Act doesn't apply there. And they'll have this tiny, tiny little carve out within it. And then they will put everything right through that loophole and just expand it until the Impoundment Control Act is basically declared moot by the Supreme Court. And then you don't have Congress anymore. Then it's just the executive.
What are you hearing anybody in Washington, inside or outside of, elected leaders or, NGOs or advocacy groups? Like, there was a time when the Harris campaign was talking about Project 2025. This is at the heart of it, right? Like this is all like the Schedule F and the whole thing, the attack on the administrative state. I mean, we were doing shows on this 6 to 8 months ago. Surely somebody thought like, hey, there's a 25% chance of this happening. Maybe we should just come up with a plan. Anybody? Have you bumped into anybody who's like, yeah, here's what we're doing. We have now engaged Operation, anti-Russell vote or whatever it is, or, no vote or whatever, something clever, something like that. Save our government.
No, the attorneys general are suing. So the blue states are suing, but no, there doesn't seem to be anything, highly sophisticated. Not controlling either chamber of Congress hurts. Not controlling the Supreme Court hurts. They're pretty routed right now.
Well, Hakeem Jeffries tells me that God's going to be sitting on the throne either way.
That's true.
So as long as God's there, I'm sure that'll work out. Let's talk about this DEI stuff because from my perspective, the whole DEI, and it's really technically DEIA, right? And that came up. The A is accessibility. And that came up. I mean, when we talking about Biden's executive order, what was it, 14 something 308 or something, that instituted these programs, it was also about accessibility. in these offices, and certainly Trump read that off from the podium as to what could be problematic about the FAA. You know, they're hiring dwarves, and literally he said this.
Yeah.
But what was your beef with this? My understanding is that you liked a tweet from Christopher Rufo, and
I missed this scandal.
Yep. Well, I just got it from the IMs.
Yeah, the thing that really pissed people off is that I said that Rufo did people a favor. Now, Rufo is not trying to do anybody a favor here. Rufo has a reactionary agenda that is going to try to take opposition to DEI as it has been constituted and expand that to an entire war on civil rights and the entire kind of welfare state and civil society that progressives have built up since the New Deal. Like that's what they're trying to do. But DEI as it's currently constituted, to me, and this is what I said on Twitter that got people really angry, is that it is an active impediment to building a multiracial working class. And the reason multiracial working class movement, the reason that it was adopted so rapidly by universities and by corporations is because they understood it as a way that they could take the momentum away from that. In particular, out of the civil rights movement, you had Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, for instance. If you had a problem at your workplace, you filed an EEOC complaint, and then the EEOC would rule on that and would order companies to remedy their structural racism. That to me is a good thing. What DEI did, and DEI did not flow out of the civil rights movement. It flowed out of the kind of woo-woo new age stuff out of the Bay Area. What corporations realized is that if they brought in these DEI consultants and built up these offices, that the EEOC and any lawsuits that were brought against the companies and other public pressure that came could then be shielded from them. Hey, we did a training. It's not us, actually, that's doing anything structurally racist here. The racism is everywhere, but most importantly, it's internalized inside of you. And you need to work through your internalized racism. And then once you do, then the problems will be solved. Until then, get out of here with your EEOC complaints and your lawsuits about racial bias. And so it became this shield that these companies and universities were using against people who were genuinely coming after them, and at the same time wasn't actually producing the kind of diversity and inclusion that it ought to.
I think that's fair.
And
within the context of essentially the corporate version of this, right? Because we did have, I guess it was executive
the university
order
version too, because universities are giant corporations and big hedge funds,
without a doubt,
that kind of have the dress up of an
but
academic institution.
as a government instrument, 1435, I guess it is 14035. This is a DEIA. It basically, among the stuff in there, was paid internships instead of non-paid internships, so that you could actually get, low-income people in there. It was stuff like, hey, I don't know, coffee should be available, so that your wheelchair can read, if you're in a wheelchair, that type of stuff. I mean, that's the problem, is that to
me, the problem becomes that you lose all of the good things if you defend something that is indefensible, because eventually you're going to lose the indefensible thing, and then with it you lose everything else.
But why not make it clear there's a distinction between, let's say, corporate DEI policies, which are a shield from government civil rights legislation, versus government DEIA policies, which are a way to make sure that workplaces are actively making sure that they...
I agree. Yeah.
All right. So...
Well, can I just point out,
do you have a blue check? Because if you have a blue check, you can edit that tweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with not all of Ryan's statement. I'll never hand it to Chris Rufo, but I do agree with the provocation on this, and I think it's a sensitive time because I think there are white supremacists in the White House, like Stephen Miller or whatever, and we need to take this stuff seriously. But I also think that's why we need to talk about this, because this past week, Al Sharpton did a buy-in supporting Costco for saying we're going to keep our DEI policies. That's fine, but it's in the context of tomorrow. Costco workers are trying to strike for a 3% raise on a company that had $7 billion in profits. Al Sharpton didn't mention that once. So people always say to the class folks, do both. I don't think we can do both when we're giving PR victories to corporations. And so if we're all agreed that the corporate stuff is the one that we need to nix, like, I think that's pretty easy to agree to.
I think that's fair in the sense that also it was the Robin DiAngelo mode of diversity. And it's I would say very in the corporate context, it's about shielding the company from liability more than it is about creating a more diverse workplace. And I do think that perhaps one silver lining of this is that we can get out of the more individualized view of racism that I think creates an anxiety sometimes in people that racists exploit. Like, now we're at a point where Musk is doing a Sig Heil, and we have to pretend like, or appears, looks like he's doing it. And we have to pretend like we don't know what it's doing because they essentially say they've made racism, liberals, into personal things that folks have had to overcome. And I think there's an anxiety that creates with some people. So then they go, well, everything's racist, so I don't have to do any work whatsoever. And then when anti-racism comes in the form of an HR meeting, it becomes bureaucracy as opposed to moving us forward.
Yeah, that's the thing is, like, MLK was in Memphis for a sanitation strike. And the thing is, like, people say class reduction, and I'm sorry. We should not be asking for any commitments from corporations on any issue that are not in a union contract, because they are not worth the paper or the web hosting that they are on.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, my feeling is that when someone says they have a problem with DEI, you make it out that you make it clear that it's corporate ones, because in the guise of the DEI attacks, they also just rendered the EEOC completely inoperable,
Right.
by firing the commissioner and getting rid of the quorum. And I am okay if Christopher Rufo wants to be out there and saying we need more government mandates on corporations as to what they can and cannot do in terms of their hiring. I am down for that.
Yeah.
Let's set that principle down, that the free market is bullshit, and that we should have more government intrusion on their private hiring practices, because that's what they're calling for.
Yeah.
I'm happy to get rid of corporate whitewashing, but I do think it's problematic. It's the same thing. They did the same thing with critical race theory, and they're going to do the same thing with some other, three alphabet way. And they're smart to pick acronyms, right? Because and to drop off the A in this, because people don't know that directive DEIA is what it is, and the corporations may have dropped the A because it's a little more expensive maybe to deal with accessibility issues, but there's a reason why they do this, just so that nobody knows what they're talking about. And
what I meant by Rufo did the left a favor is, first of all, I'm provocative sometimes, and just poking people, as you know. But what I mean is that the left was unwilling to go after the corporate stuff. They weren't willing to say that Robin DiAngelo. There some people were, but in general, they weren't willing to say Robin DiAngelo is a grifter who is making the world kind of a worse place for this kind of stuff. And what it did, and this is the deep irony, and why I'm actually not remotely aligned with Rufo, is like a lot of the energy behind the anti-DEI stuff, the CRT stuff, is ironically white identity politics. Like, if you look at,
not ironically at all,
it's
exactly that, of course.
I mean, it's ironic if you take seriously words that they speak, which nobody should. But if you look at the actual impulse, it's all about people feeling resentment that white people are not being treated fairly, which is, go ahead, do your thing, but like that's white identity politics, and just own what it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
100%. You know, we got one party where 84% of the people who vote for it are white. I mean, that's white identity politics.
And this
male identity.
Donald Trump didn't have to say, I'm picking only a white guy as my VP. It's understood.
Right.
It's understood
But Ryan
that's gonna
says
happen.
male identity politics. That's also important because the D'Angelo style of anti-racism, again, this is a white woman who does a lot of expensive talk. She wrote a book about basically being anti-racist. I would wish that, I think that maybe corporations should take advice from a black person on this, and not Robin D'Angelo, but I liken it to Lean In. I liken it to the Sheryl Sandberg kind of style of like corporate workplace feminism that I'm very critical of. But I guess perhaps, Ryan, the context of, go ahead.
One final point on a moral level, a lot of the D'Angelo DEI type of stuff was objectively itself racist. Like you didn't need you didn't need a sophisticated argument about how it's going to lead to more racism. They were serious when they would say that, being, punctuality is a trait of white supremacy, or you can find all the other things like this. Like these are real things that these white people would say about black people under the guise of anti-racist, and anybody with any common sense would hear them being said and be like, okay, you're saying that's anti-racist, but I'm not a moron. You sound like you're being racist right now. And so many people heard it that way, black, white, and brown. Like, no. You're trying to tell me up is down right now. You this white lady and this corporation are going to make an enormous amount of money telling us that being late is a part of black culture. Like that's racist. Like we should reject that like whole cloth, just for no other reason than it is objectively immoral.
Let me ask you this, because I will admit to a real lack of awareness of Robin D'Angelo stuff. I just never engaged in it. I don't have to. I don't work at a.
You'll be shocked.
Oh no, I have no doubt. But how many workers are subject to this? I'm just doing like a quick look in Pew in 2023, at least, was saying 56% think it's a good thing. Who knows how many of them actually, smaller shares of the workplace have a staff member who promotes DEI, that their workplace offers salary transparency, and 26% have resource. My sense of this, just from conversations I've had over the past couple of years, is that much of this type of D'Angelo training is focused in media companies and in honestly, it's
like nonprofits
and like places who have a larger voice within the conversation because they're engaged in the conversation more. And there's a perception that there's like it's going on and it's gone crazy. I mean, I remember having conversations with somebody who was like, I think they worked at the Times, and they're like, this is out of control. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, people are identifying themselves as J and Z. And I'm like, you're the first person I've ever heard who is like, dude, it's because it's at the Times, because they're high profile. Their work, maybe it wasn't the time. It was some a media outlet. So I don't want to be held.
I don't know. I think it's a lot more widespread, or was a lot more widespread than that, including in schools and like lots of major corporations and mid-sized corporations that just felt like this is the thing that we're doing now. But I also think that whenever Democrats or the left or the center left or whatever find themselves saying that instead of defending a particular practice or idea, they find themselves saying that it doesn't actually exist, they should take a step back and like, wait a minute, a lot of people think it exists. Let me move this cat. A lot of people think it exists. Let's defend it. if we believe it's a defensible and good thing, so you so often hear, well, that doesn't actually happen. They're blowing that out of proportion. That's kind of beside the point, because they also have $500 million that they can spend on advertising, even if they are fabricating the entire thing.
Well,
so if
I think
Democrats
it's really
don't think
more
the thing is a
about
good
how.
idea, then just say it's not a good idea rather than saying it's not actually.
Well, I mean, I guess if I was to address it, I would say like this is a corporate thing that is happening and I don't care what corporations do. They're private entities, and I'm happy to have government have the power to dictate more specifically their hiring practices and whatnot, and if that's what you're prescribing. But this sort of amorphous DEI thing ends up like, again, justifying getting rid of the EEOC. Again, ends up being like where Trump feels empowered to sit in front of the podium and say, well, the reason why this plane fell out of the sky was probably because, either we hired someone with any type of, a handicap, or if they were black, or they're a woman, or they're gay, or whatever it is.
But then I just
Washington
want to.
Times put a picture of a black man in an air traffic control tower, and then Elon Musk shared that image. It didn't even actually look like it was DCA. It didn't look like it was national. They just literally, the Washington Times, they said,
I think it was a white air traffic controller too. But like the thing,
there was a white guy and a black guy. It was clear like they were blaming the black guy for it.
To your point about how the Democrats don't define anything, I think that DEI has become an avatar for extreme racism emboldened by the Trump and a catch-all for that. And Kamala Harris's candidacy, where first of all, Biden undercut her from the beginning by saying, I'm going to nominate a black woman instead of just doing it.
And then going out and finding a black, Yes,
so then they call
outrageous.
her a DEI hire and a DEI candidate. People have this resentment from corporate or their management that is this bureaucracy that is not really for them. It's to protect the company from liability, and their wages are depressed. And Kamala Harris looks like a bureaucrat or talks like a bureaucrat for the most part. And they're being told she's a DEI hire. So all of this is still racist, the reaction to her. But it doesn't mean that the Democrats didn't do a horrible job of defining it in their own way. And I think that's still...
And can I just make one point on that, Emma? Is like the Democrats, my cynical reason is they like DEI stuff because it's civil rights without the class politics.
And Emma, your point is worth underlining. I hadn't quite thought about it in that way, but what elevating the corporate DEI stuff as a boogeyman allowed the right to do was to tap into all of the anger that corporate workers have for their corporate managers and bosses, and channel it as you're saying, is channel it at this other thing rather than where it ought to be, and forming a union and developing a social welfare state.
Right.
Well, I think maybe we should talk about when your tweets in the future. We'll run stuff by me, and we'll have these conversations before you send them out.
I don't know how I missed this one if it was so explosive. I'm always, Sam's making fun of me. I'm sending him stuff on Twitter at 1 a.m. So
I'll send it to you.
Sam will say this to Ryan.
You can't do it, Vladimir. You do it, it's going to be a bad day.
One of my favorites.
That's what's happening every time.
That's like when his dentures were real loose.
Yeah, you certainly had it. You went through a series. We didn't get a chance to talk about tariffs, but we did. I just got an IM from somebody who works in work for a metals distributor. Just got an email saying the industry is expecting tariffs coming in. The U.S. consumes 6.5 million tons of aluminum every year. 2.7 million tons of that comes from Canada. Domestic mills are expected to raise prices to what can be considered a 20-month high by tomorrow. I imagine, if he does 25%, also, you can forget about your woodworking projects because a huge percentage of our, I'm really
Trump
talking
said
about
we have plenty of wood.
Construction.
You heard him. Yeah.
Plenty of
Trump
wood.
said we don't need Canada's wood. We have plenty of wood.
Cool.
It is.
So we're good on that.
Between the what we're seeing in terms of like their attacks on migrants and the idea of Canadian wood jumping 25% tomorrow, you can forget building projects anywhere.
Which is such a funny idea. What are you trying to encourage there? More forests in the U.S.? Like, you put tariffs on Canadian wood, so therefore you're trying to encourage the growth of wood here in the United States.
It's the way.
If we want more wood in the United
you're
States, we have national parks.
You're thinking of tariffs as the old way of thinking. You're thinking of it as trying to encourage an industry in this country. No. What tariffs are is a huge revenue raiser for the government. We're going to get rid of the income tax.
Duh.
Canada. Yeah.
William McKinley. They tried to kill him too.
McKinley, incidentally, knew that tariffs were a way to build specific industries in this country.
Right,
he didn't think it was
a revenue raiser. It's hilarious.
It is.
Whoever told Trump the first time that the foreign company or country pays the tariff has cursed us all for decades.
It's fascinating. He can't
really?
get past this.
But it's also why he's obsessed with Greenland, because I think the rare earth minerals there, the 1/4 of the world's rare earth minerals, Elon Musk is like, go take Greenland. But he's also fixated on the imperialism of the McKinley era. Someone gave him a ideological, like a daddy to look up to himself.
Little Teddy Roosevelt.
A little bit of TR, but the McKinley thing, we need to get a McKinley historian on here to talk about this, because much of
Philippines.
Yeah,
it's like no good books on him either. I tried looking.
The Philippines exactly is what the Panama Canal, that's where he's drawing from, and he's old and he's crazy, and this is one of his few hinge points.
I think McKinley probably wanted Cuba, so maybe Trump will get that.
Let me ask you one more thing. If you are Canada or Mexico, you find that all of a sudden there's a 25% tariff on just about everything except for oil products. You start to levy your tariffs. You don't necessarily you don't want to raise prices for your own country citizens, but you want to punish specific individuals. Where do you, what industries do you target? In other words, maybe if if Thune, I don't know what comes out of Thune's home state, but maybe it's that one product that you decide to, put some pain on. Like, who are in the administration or in the House or the Senate? What industries do you have any sense of this? I mean, I know this is a question like you wouldn't know off the top of your head, but
I mean, what I would do, I'd look at Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, and I'd say interns, or maybe I'd go to DeepSeek and ask DeepSeek, what are the top exporting industries from Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin into Canada?
Yep. Cheese is going to go. There's a huge cheese tariff in Canada and Mexico.
And they probably love that tasteless stuff up there.
Yep. Oh, boy. Shots fired. Wow. Ryan Grimm, reporter and co-founder at Dropsite News, co-host of Counterpoints. You can find his X account at...
Don't find it. Yeah.
No.
Go to the Dropsite.
It's going to be... that'll end up being our programming for the next, 6 weeks, is addressing all of your tweets.
Don't go there. It's a different Ryan Grimm.
All right, folks. Ryan Grimm, thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
All right, folks. I guess we will... What the heck is that?
I just have to reassess this.
All right.
There. 1 second. Boom.
I know people want a more Ryan Grimm cat stuff. One of the things I love about McKinley... one of the things about wasn't Rushmore during McKinley's era? Didn't Mount Rushmore? Didn't they because that was stolen from the Lakota, right?
Yeah, it was in the Black Hills, which was supposed to be kept for them as their holy land, and we're like,
okay, that's the thing I want. I want my face up there in the Holy Land.
Oh, it's very sacred to all sorts of different Native American tribes. Well,
That sounds good.
so is gold to our tribe. Okay.
That sounds good.
American tribe.
Karl Rove in 2000, according to Jay Tingle, claimed that he modeled his career on that of McKinley advisor Mark Hanna. Maybe get Rove on your podcast.
Okay.
I'm going to say pass.
Okay.
MC Rove.
All right, Philly cheesesteak. I'm
But
not going
that's
to read
weird.
that, but thank you.
Isn't it funny how the Republicans, when they have to go a little bit further into the past, first of all, they pretend like they valorize Lincoln as if they wouldn't have been in opposition to him aggressively, but like they don't have a ton of great conservative presidents that they can draw on because conservatism is horrible. So they're like he's doing this like fan fiction about McKinley.
Because you
So
can't do
Rushmore
Nixon.
didn't start apparently until 1927, and McKinley was president the last couple of years of the 19th century. But I wonder if maybe that's when the U.S. pushed Lakota out of there.
When the Lakota got pushed out, I mean, there's what was the sort of dance thing that they ended up leading to a massacre. Lots of stuff around there.
It's just a time in history that I can't say I'm like, the most familiar with. The very back half of the 1800s and into the early 20th century.
Bunch of monopolies being made.
Yeah.
Through rail, and the South on their Jim Crow stuff.
I know that stuff, but be curious how much Trump is actually pulling from McKinley.
All right, one IM, and then we'll head to the fun half. Charlie Scherer says, asking a favor from y'all. Regular MR chatter, Annie Fitzgerald, needs help in order to finish her chemotherapy treatment. Her chemo is on hold until more funds can be raised for co-pays. First of all, just the idea of being able to read a sentence like that is just barbaric. Any help you could provide is greatly appreciated. We were able to get 150 last night to get her at least one more treatment and half of the next one. Put a link for the GoFundMe here.
I'm sending it to you, Bradley. You want to put it up?
All right, we will put that link for the GoFundMe in the podcast and YouTube description. It is just insanely outrageous that people have to do that. She's just trying to get $1,500. Just absurd.
Outrageous.
All right, folks. It's your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only get the free show, free of commercials, you get the fun half as well. And you can IM the fun half. And hey, don't forget the AM Quickie. I didn't even tell you guys. When I was coming back from LA, I ran into Jacob.
Oh, really?
At the airport. And I'm like looking at him. I'm like, he was there. He's got a family. And I'm like, is that? That can't be. Because I've only seen him through
Zoom.
Yeah. And I'm like, that is not him. Is that him? I kept like staring at him, and he came up. He's like, Sam, and I'm like, oh, hey.
But I don't trust my face recognition.
No, I can't at all. I don't.
You've got face blindness.
I've got everything blindness, frankly. Particularly, actually, I had the wrong pair of glasses. But the point being, Jacob and Corey do an amazing job with the AM Quickie every morning. And now more than ever, just to keep up, I feel like every time we report a story now at the beginning of the show, halfway through the show, it's 180 degrees from what it was half an hour earlier. And then half an hour later, it's like another 45 degrees.
I know.
AM Quickie, email every morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time, top stories you may miss because of all the top stories, and with a decidedly sort of jaundiced eye towards, all of it, frankly. And it's free 3 days a week, amquickie.com. Check it out. And don't forget justcoffee.coop. I think coffee prices are going to go up soon. Great.
They're already up. I was just
Are they?
talking downstairs to some of the folks down there, and yeah.
Coffee prices are up.
Yep.
Head over to justcoffee.coop. Get a 5-pound bag of that Majority Report blend. You can get a 5-pound bag of anything, but also know they take care of their providers, farmers in Chiapas and on the African continent. I would imagine also there's other Central American providers as well. Check it out, justcoffee.coop. Use the coupon code Majority, get 10% off. Emma, ESVN.
On Monday, Bradley and I broke down the NFC, AFC championships. We talked a little bit about the Super Bowl, the hirings. Schottenheimer in Dallas is hilarious. The Liam Cohen debacle in Jacksonville, youtube.com/ESPN show.
Matt.
Oh, yeah, Left Reckoning. We had Grace Blakely, Asal Rod, and Neil Meyer on a full show. Neil was on the postgame, patreon.com/Left Reckoning to get access to that, but go check it out.
See you in the fun half. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous. You're a little bit upset. You're riled up.
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
That's some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 eighths. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy!
Dance, dance, dance.
Rand Paul.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agreed.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up. Ooh. Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me...
Hey, shut up!
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland.
Good job.
On the Majority Report. Fun half, ladies and gentlemen. Friday. Long week already. It's begun. We're all adjusting to the onslaught of stories and the watching the media not be up to the moment. In many respects, watching many of the Democratic leaders not being up to the moment. it's unclear what we can do to stop this in the short term. Obviously, people can go to the courts,